so many songs and just have been reminded of how I want to be more and more like Jesus every day. I want to live the way that he lives, love the people the way that he loved them. And sometimes that makes me feel a little bit like a rebel, like I'm not going to stand back on who I am and what I believe. And so here's another brand new song. I need you guys to help me out with it. Here we go. Thank you guys again for being here. It means so much to me, more than you know. As a new, almost I still feel like a brand new artist that only has one record out. I'm just so grateful for all of you coming here tonight and being a part of this tour and the story that God is writing through my Jesus. When I was talking to my manager about this fall as we were planning ahead last year, I was like, I really want to do a tour that honors this record. My Jesus, the record was nominated for a Grammy this year. I needed to honor what God did through these songs in this record, and then just get the chance to meet you guys and get to be a part of it. So thank you. I want to share a little bit of my testimony, if y'all are doing that tonight. I grew up in a beautiful city, Lexington, Kentucky. Just absolutely beautiful there, and I grew up next to a creek, and so me and my brother and my sister were always getting into something in the creek or in the neighborhood. But we grew up going to our farm every weekend. My granddad owns 700 acres of land in Kentucky. It's absolutely beautiful. And it's been in our family for so long. And we just loved going there every weekend. I grew up just going on the farm and shooting guns and going hunting and fishing. And it was so much fun. Just absolutely loved it. I learned a lot about just how to love God during my childhood. My parents did a really good job at raising me in the love of Jesus, but also the fear of God, and teaching me that I had to fear Him, and just so many incredible things. And so they've just been really, really important to me as I've kind of walked through this journey the last few years. But God just did amazing things when I was a kid. I remember falling in love with Him, like absolutely in love with Him in 7th grade. My very first day of 7th grade school year, I had a Bible teacher come, and he taught me about Jesus. Like, I had known about Him my whole life. I grew up in the church, but it was the first time that I really realized that Jesus really died for me. Like, the God of the universe sent His Son to die for me. He loved me that much. And for the first time in my life, just my faith became really real and personal to me, and I fell in love with who Jesus was and who He is, and just how He loved me so well. And so I became a Christian in 7th grade, and I never looked back. And I fell in love with who Jesus was. And that's really where my faith started. And growing up, I always wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to work for NASA. It was my biggest dream and my plan for my life and my future. And my parents took me to NASA when I was in 8th grade because I wanted to be an astronaut so badly. And they believed in me enough, so they took me to NASA. And we met with them and talked about what it would maybe like to, go that direction in life. And that was my plan. But then in 2017, I was a sophomore. I was going into my sophomore year of high school. I was 15 years old. It was the summer going after that year. And I had a really sweet school year and start to a beautiful summer. I was out with some friends that day and we were having a blast. I go home that night, go to bed. It's a normal day. This was June 6th of 2017. And I wake up in the middle of the night, about 3:30 in the morning, to a knock at the door. So I was half asleep and I look out the window and all I could see were flashing red and blue lights. And so I knew something had happened, but I didn't really know what was going on. And so I went downstairs and the first thing I saw were 6 police officers standing in front of my front door, and they all just looked really sad and devastated, but they wouldn't say anything. So I kept asking them, like, can you please tell me what's going on? And they wouldn't say anything. So then I walk into my living room right around the corner, and I see my mom and my dad in complete and total despair. My mom was pulling her hair out, screaming and crying. My dad was weeping with his head in his hands. I had never seen my dad crying all of my life, and he was weeping. And I knew it had to be about my brother. And so I went over to my dad, and I just said, the first thing that came to my mind was, Dad, is he gone? And he looked up at me with tears in his eyes, and he said, yeah, Ann, Jacob's gone. And we had found out that night that my brother had passed away in a car accident. He was hit in an intersection and died on impact at the scene. And it was beyond tragic. I remember, like, 15 years old, it ripped away the rest of my childhood. I remember kind of coming to this realization in that moment that, wow, like, I have to live the rest of my life without my brother. And it was so devastating, it was so heart-wrenching. But in that moment, there was like this still small voice from God that spoke to me, and he said, in that exact moment, Anne, are you going to trust me or are you not? And I remember like feeling like this, feeling of like, I have to make a decision right now, moving forward. Am I going to trust God or am I going to do all this on my own? And I turned around and I said, Jesus, I trust you. And it was in that moment that I felt like this heavy weight kind of lifted off of my shoulders, and I could take my next breath and I could continue on. And I knew that God was somehow going to give me what I needed to get through that time. And so slowly but surely, God started to take my life and put it back into pieces. And me and my sister and my parents started to grow closer together and started leaning to God and really just into each other during that time. And God began to really do a miracle in our family. He began to do so many incredible things and has just continued to now all these years later. It's been 6 years. It was 6 years on June 7th. And I think one thing I've realized over the last few months as I've been writing my new record is like, it doesn't get any easier. Like, the pain is still very there every single day. Like, yes, God has healed me, we can move on, but it's still so much grief and still so much pain that I deal with every day. And so I remember writing with my co-writers, Matthew West and Jeff Pardo, and we sat together and I was like, I feel like there's so many songs about heaven, but there's not a lot of songs that sit in the pain and kind of face it, because when we do face death, that's when we're reminded of where our comfort comes from, in Jesus. And that's where we're reminded that we'll be together all again one day in heaven. There will be no more crying, no more tears, no more sorrow, no more pain. And he will make all things new. Aren't you guys grateful for that? And so I know there's probably several of you on here that have walked through some loss recently, whether that's a loss of a loved one or a job loss or a divorce or something really hard in your life. I just want you to know tonight Jesus is here in this place, and he loves you more than you could ever fathom. And tonight is your night. You can come to know the joy, the peace, and the comfort that he offers. And so I'm really, really excited to sing y'all this new song. I put this out on June 7th this year. It is, to date, my favorite song I've ever written, and it just ministers to me, and I hope it does to you. This is called 7th of June. My friends, they know I won't pick up if they call me. One day, and that one day is here. And my tears just like the salt, the rain are falling. It's just what they do when I start missing you. Why'd you have to go? And why I have to sing? And when's it gonna get easier to make it? I go out walking, I ain't much for talking, just think and praying and trying to make sense of what don't make sense. Like since the day you left me. Crazy how my life has changed. Every night a different state. And sometimes it feels like you are watching. Are you looking down? I wonder if you're proud of me. Oh, I go out walking, I ain't much for talking, just thinking and crying and praying and trying to make sense of what don't make sense. say